somebody from somewhere came. He thought that the Bougainville man was a primitive and he needs education and he needs religion. The Bougainville man became a confused man after the colonizer came into Bougainville. What happened to the Bougainville man when the colonizer came into Bougainville? Rationalism in science leading to discoveries that the Earth was round, solar system, and so on. Science versus creationism. Conflict. Man starting to lose faith in God, the Creator. Power struggle between superpowers in Europe. Division between government and church, political and spiritual. Explorations and discoveries of the new worlds and cultural division in nations. What happened? The rush. The colonizer, poisoned and blinded by pride, jealousy, greed, hatred, ignorance, leaves own land and culture and sets off into the new world to satisfy his own ego. Man of problem, the foreigner. The problem was created in his own land. When he came into Bougainville, his problems became the problems of Bougainville men. When the colonizer came, his reaction is a mixture of feelings. Sees a Bougainville man as an inferior, dirty, primitive being just above an animal. That's how the colonizer described the Bougainville man. Although even he was naked, even he looked primitive, he had all the aspects to be a full and independent man. When the colonizer came to Bougainville and landed in Bougainville, that's when the Bougainville crisis or the conflict began. Indoctrinations, distractions, confusion. The Bougainville man was confused. When the colonizer came, he started indoctrinating them. The colonizer starts his work on the Bougainville man. He gave him axes, knives, which were superior because at that time our ancestor was only using stone axes. And other things that he physically disturbed the physical side were clothing, which were manufactured at his home, and he brought them with him and clothed the naked, to his eye, a primitive man. Economics, better tools and other utensils like pots, cooking pots. Because the Bougainville man, when he was by himself, he used bamboo or fire for his cooking. But when the colonizer gave him cooking pots and better tools, life seemed easier. Political. Display of superiority in weapons, show of superior authority. Impressed by materialism, the Bougainville man accepts the new peasant as a master and a model, and himself as a inferior. False roots of suppression and oppression became when the colonizer came. Before the colonizer came, the Bougainville man was independent. He was free. He didn't worry about anything. He had everything he needed for his survival. So impressed beyond all limits, the Bougainville man sees the colonizer as a god or a being next to God. When he brought biblical doctrines, Bougainville man before the colonizer's arrival was a spiritual man. The colonizer sees him as a pagan, worshipper of darkness. When the colonizer tells him each dead father's spirit is a devil, the Bougainvillean man bowed down, worshipping a European spirit of a saint. He forgot about his ancestor spirits, whom he was communicating through them to God. How many gods do we have to worship? Socially, belongingness to one's group changes association, with colonizer becoming the pretext. The colonizer's influence disturbed the Bougainville man's marriage, initiations, sacred initiations, kinship, whatever rituals he did, feasts. It disturbed him. Entertainment, the Bougainville man knew entertainment long before the colonizer. Movement and respect. Before the colonizer, the Bougainville man respected his fellow men, women folk, community. But when the colonizer came, this changed. Mentally, the colonizer never taught the Bougainville man how and where he got the knowledge, how to make or manufacture the things he brought with him and gave to the Bougainville man. That's one factor of confusion. The colonizer changed the Bougainville man physically, spiritually, politically, socially, and economically, raising his needs to the level of the colonizer, thus making him incomplete, wanting things that he cannot produce. Incompleteness, mental emptiness, and dependency came into effect on the Bougainville man because he worshipped the colonizer. And up to today, we are consumers only. We have no freedom. Bougainville man becomes dependent as a result of white man's artificial creation. He becomes a slave to the new way. We are chasing the wind because we are slaves of the colonizer. Common aim of the colonizer, exploitation. One day the whole world will be Germany. One day the whole world will be Catholic. For that I see as a madman's dream. Common practice by every colonizer. After making the Bougainville Median black man's mentality dependent in satisfying the physical, spiritual, economic and political needs, the colonizer kicks him out by giving him political independence, decision making, which is not really independence. This gives an example of Papua New Guinea situation. PNC independence, 1975. The design of the system is the application of the seed of dependency planted in the time of colonization. Political, government, huge system, huge expensive system designed for distribution of imported goods and services. Constitution, specially designed to protect economic interest of the colonizer. Example, military controlled by Australia in PNC. The colonizer tells the landowner 6 feet below the earth's crust is the state-owned, which means the resources you can own the topsoil, but 6 feet underneath is for the state. Social, clash of two cultures, copies the white man in every way possible, have to be forced, and out of fear we have to worship somebody. Forced rules, forced laws, forced mining laws becomes a artificial European society. Economy, desire for materialism that he does not have knowledge and materials to produce, borrow for money. PNC has to borrow from somewhere to sustain a huge structure of government system. Australia forced Papua New Guinea into independence in 1975, September 16. Sir Michael Somare was chief minister in the House of Assembly. Somare told Australian government, I have no money to run the government and the services for the people. Australia advised Somare, you borrow from the World Bank and you open mines in your country that will sustain your economy for the running of your government. Borrow for money, borrow for service, becomes a slave to the master. That's why Papua New Guinea now has no way to go. Instead of surviving, she is dying. Only education that the colonizer designed for him was service and distribution of goods imported from the colonizer. We are educated for employment to sustain our living. There's no education for living, for self-reliance. Education to live in town. Education for adoration of the white race. Sorry about that, but I have to say that. Education to suppress the Bougainvillean man's mind at Stone Age, thus preventing him from reaching his full potential. in mental advancement. Education to be a consumer. Industrialization of superpowers. Dream of every third world country, nations. Exploitation of third world nations. Who dreamt that? England, British, they exploited Africa by their colonization. USA, US continents, she became a dictator upon her states. Australia, the Pacific nations. Every resources that is used for building of these empires comes from the land. These so-called superpower nations, they thought they had no problems. They came to Bougainville, or even the South Pacific nations, or even PNC. But to this day, they haven't solved their own people's problems. I don't know if Australia or the US or whatever nation has controlled poverty. In Bougainville, there's no poverty. There's no anger. Everybody has enough to live and to eat. There was no employment problem in Bougainville before the colonizer came. Every man, every woman had their jobs. But today, with the so-called education, a lot of our children roam the streets, even with the master's degrees, doctorates, PhDs. Grade 11 students, 12 students, they have no jobs with the education that they are getting. Summary: PNC designed for doom, a dumping ground of white man's junk, nothing but a marketplace. That's how I see Papua New Guinea independence. Bougainville was forced onto this setup in 1975 when they proclaimed Bougainville as part and parcel of Papua New Guinea. Therefore, the solution to the Bougainville crisis does not exist in the PNC constitution. The only logical solution is to break away from PNC. PNC is living beyond her means. PNC's trend of development has been backward since 1975. Instead of progressing, it has been sinking. That's why PNC is, I don't know whether she'll survive or it's up to her.